We hear lots of stories about U.S. veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. James Benét's story is a little different. It involves the group of nearly 3,000 American men and women who volunteered for Spain's Civil War in the 1930s. They fought against General Francisco Franco and his fascist forces and became known as the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. About 900 of them died in the fighting. Today, only 4 of them are still alive to tell their story. James Benét is one of them. He's now a sturdy 98 years old. Reporter Monica Campbell recently visited him at his home in Northern California.
That's aerial bombing during Spain's Civil War. To most, it's history, the prelude to World War II. But to James Benét, these sounds bring back still vivid memories of war.
What is it like to be bombed? Scary. You know, you lie flat, hope that the fragments will go over you. I mean, in my case, at least they did.
It was spring 1937, and Benét joined nearly 3,000 other Americans to help fight General Franco's takeover of Spain. They formed part of an international volunteer front. They became the Abraham Lincoln Brigade.
I think you can find a lot of corners of history if you want to start poking around.
From his home in Forestville, in rural Northern California, Benét recalls leaving for Spain in his early 20s. At the time, he was a journalist living in New York, a socialist raised in a military family. So when he heard about Americans united by their anti-fascist views heading to Spain, Benét boarded a ship to Europe.
If the moment comes when it's the obvious right thing and somebody's got to do it, maybe it's going to be you.
Once he landed, he headed to northern Spain to meet up with Spanish fighters and get equipped.
Oh, we were given these awful uniforms. They were woolen, so really too hot. They were, I guess, leftover winter army uniforms or something.
He served as an ambulance driver on the front with other volunteers, shopkeepers from Brooklyn, musicians, mill workers from the Midwest, people driven by belief but without any boot camp. They became combatants overnight.
And, of course, some of them adopted the soldier's life as if they were born to it. Fortunately, I was in pretty good physical shape, and some of the others just had a terrible time. You had these strange experiences with guys, you know, the toughest guys you'll ever meet, and they turned out to be quite chicken. I've seen a guy's hair turn white. And the strangest thing in the world. He was afraid, of course, and everybody is afraid one time or another.
Benét also remembers seeing Ernest Hemingway.
The thing we liked about Hemingway was that he liked soldiers. He'd been under fire. He knew that you didn't want to talk about it.
After 18 months, Benét and many of the volunteers left Spain. They knew that Franco's soldiers, with support from Hitler and Mussolini, would win. Benét says it was tough to go.
You became so close to the Spanish people that you thought, I had to stick around. Of course, some of them went to the mountains and said, okay, I'll live and die here, you know.
Back in New York, Benét continued writing about the war for leftist magazines and tasked the Soviet press agency. The Abraham Lincoln Brigade vets also organized public talks.
We tried to explain, sure, you're not interested in politics, but politics is going to be interested in you. Even young men who were going to be drafted, a lot of these guys just didn't have the faintest idea what was going on. They didn't see it.
And some of the vets, including Benét, were viewed with suspicion, especially after Soviet leader Joseph Stalin formed a pact with Adolf Hitler in 1939.
There were the people who disliked the Russians anyway, so they said, aha, this just shows you what rats they are.
Benét rejected the Soviet-Nazi pact too, but he was also dismayed that the U.S. had left Spain to fend for itself while the Soviets backed Spain's anti-fascists, and he continued to write for a Soviet news agency. Well after Spain, Benét and his fellow vets were labeled as communist dupes. During the Cold War, they were called to testify before Washington groups like the House Committee on Un-American Activities. But Benét says he's never regretted what he did back in the 1930s.
Well, I always felt that I was on the right side of history in Spain, yes, sure.
For The World, I'm Monica Campbell in Forestville, California.